Division 2 is an awesome game, in my opinion, that expresses, well, a lot of things. First off, it's a third-person shooter, so it's kind of like some of the other games that you might know. I'm not going to mention one in particular, but you get my point. Plus, it's a shooter. Everybody loves shooting. I hope you do. Otherwise, this video isn't for you. Anyways, so I thought the first video that I'd do is show you my main build. The build that has created what I now have. This is my damage build. So, for my damage build, I have many assortities. Assortities? No, that's not right. Anyways, I have many things that make this build what it is. Now, I'm going to give suggestions for what you should put on it, which is what I put on it. But if you do not have it, or you do not want to put on it, that is fine too, just as long as it works for you. Now, I will give you recommendations for other things if you do not have the items that I have right now. Alright, so, to begin, we're going to start with the exotic mask, the Coyote's Mask. Now, this is a big part in this, just because it gives you a lot of critical hit, everything basically. And its talent is Pack Instincts, which basically amplifies critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit chance by how far away your enemy is. Which is pretty good for exotic mask. Now, on to the next one. Well, first off, if you do not have the Coyote's Mask, then I would suggest putting on something that has a lot of critical hit everything. Now, the Pack Instincts isn't the best, but it's better than some of the other things that I've seen. The Hollow Man is a good replacement for the Coyote's Mask, but I would say no. Don't use the Hollow Man if you have Coyote's Mask, just because you get a little bit more with the Coyote's Mask. Now for the backpack. The backpack that I have on is the Gift. I know, pretty sweet, huh? The Gift has a lot of things good with it. First off, it's a Providence defense piece, which means if you get 3 of it, you get plus 10% headshot damage, plus 10% critical hit chance, and plus 15% critical hit damage, which is crucial. Crucial to any critical hit build. But the big player on this is Perfect Vigilance, which is the Gift specialty. It increases total weapon damage by 25%, but if you take any damage, it disables the buff for 3 seconds. Now, this is incredibly good in PvE, because whenever you're playing in PvE, you want to do as much damage as possible. Though, with this, you might have to stay in cover a little bit longer, just because, well, you don't want to get hit and lose that 25% damage. Alright, for the next one, the Contractor's Gloves. Now, this is a pet drop defense group piece, which means it gives you plus 10% LMG damage, which I am just keeping it at because I run an LMG, which I will explain later on. Why this is so crucial, you might wonder. Well, it has the plus 8% damage to armor. The plus 8% damage to armor screws up people's armor. I mean, really. Chomps it up, spits it back out, it's gone. Now, this is also a very good build because I'm using the Contractor Gloves for DZ as well. I have blasted countless people with these gloves. Blasted them. Thrown them under the bus, chomped them up, gone. Now, you want your second attribute to be some sort of critical hit, whether it's critical hit chance or critical hit damage. I kind of wish that I had a God Rule set, but, you know. Now, in order to replace... Now, say you don't have the Contractor's Gloves, then you would replace it with maybe some God Rule set that has critical hit everything. Now, I know I said this was a DPS build in the beginning, but now that I think about it, it's more of a crit build. So, if you want a crit build, this is one. Now, for the next one, I have the sacrifice, which this is also a very crucial piece, because it gives you perfect glass cannon, which means all damage you deal is amplified by 30%, but all damage you take is amplified by 60%. So, this makes you instinctually more conservative, which also helps the gift with perfect vigilance, because as long as you stay behind cover, they will not be able to hit you. Now, another thing with this is that it's another Providence defense piece, which gives me that critical hit chance. Now onto the holster. The holster right here is a maxed out holster that I got not too long ago. This holster, basically is a Seska, and it gives you plus 10% critical hit chance. It is a big part in what I do, but I kind of wish that the headshot damage was more like a critical hit chance. But what can you do? Now, I'm leaving out any replacements for the backpack and the chest piece because I'll get to them later. Now, if you want to replace this, just replace it with any sort of Seska holster that you have with weapon damage and some crit stuff, if you can. But I mean, it never hurts to be a little bit more tanky. So, that comes back to the chest piece. The chest piece, honestly, if you have glass cannon or anything like that, perfect glass cannon, you want no armor on your build. Because no matter what, your armor is going to go away so quickly. So, what I suggest is, if you're going to use armor on any of your pieces whatsoever, do not use the sacrifice or any sort of glass cannon. Use something that fits you. As long as it works, it's good. As long as you know how to use it, it's good. It honestly doesn't really matter if I have this and you do not. As long as it works, it's good. Now, for this right here, the pads, it's pretty crucial that you get Providence defense. I don't really care what rolls you have on it. I have hazard protection and critical hit chance with weapon damage, but that's just me. Again, if it works, it's good. Now the Providence, it gives me critical hit damage, so that's also another thing. Now, going back to the backpack, if you do not have the gift, replace it for any sort of Providence defense piece, because then it will get rid of that critical hit damage, which you need for a damage crit build. Now, onto the weapons! The weapons, yay! Now, I have the Bullet King! What's so good about it? What's so good about it? Well, this right here, Bullet Hell. This weapon never needs to be reloaded. For every 100 bullets that hit an enemy, replenish some ammo to you and your allies' reserves. This is very good, especially with the 850 RPM. This can blast through any target, whether it's in the DZ or whether it's PvE. Honestly, I usually use Pestilence in the DZ, but I mean, if you want to use Bullet King in the DZ, feel free. Honestly, whatever works, works. Now, if you don't have the Bullet King, then use the Pestilence. On everything. I don't care. Just as long as it works. Now, usually this build is good with any LMG, but take a look down here. Critical hit damage. Usually you want that on there. Now, for the secondary weapon, I have the Baker's Dozen, which is an M1A, which is the, debatably, the best gun in the game. It does a total damage of 521.8 thousand damage per shot. And that's not even without critical hits. This is a beautiful weapon. This is awesome in PvE. It is also pretty good in PvP, let me just add. It is good in every scenario possible. Everybody runs it, everybody uses it, everybody blasts people with it. Whether it's NPCs or people, or players. Now for the pistol, I don't care. I don't care what you use. I use this because it comes along with my specialization gunner, but I don't care what you use, honestly. Just as long as it works. Now for the specialization, the gunner specialization. The gunner specialization is a good specialization, actually incredibly good specialization to run with this build. Why, you may ask? Well, it has everything to do with LMGs. LMGs are the base hold of what this specialization is. If you come over here, the talents are emplacement, plus 15% weapon handling while not moving, but you need to be motionless for 1 second. That is incredibly good for any PvE, like running missions or any PvE activity whatsoever. Because usually the Bullet King or any type of LMG is very kick-worthy. So it wants to kick up, it wants to move on its own. And you have to control it, but it's pretty hard to control, no? So this makes it a lot easier to control because of it. Now for this one, Vital Protection, plus 50% pulse resistance. I don't really know why this is here, and why it is on every single specialization possible. It really does nothing, but I just go along with it. Now this right here, rate of fire increases by 5% on kill for 5 seconds. That is super good. Like, that is really good. Rate of fire is a big player in using a weapon. When you use a weapon, you want to blast people away. You want to do as much damage as possible in the small amount of time that you have to fight them. Rate of fire increases how much damage you put out in those few seconds by blasting as many rounds possible, by cramming as many rounds possible into that person as possible. I said as possible a lot of times. Anyways, now for this one, supply line. This is also very big for Bullet King, because it generates 10% of total ammo capacity every 60 seconds, while party members recover 5%. That is also very big, because as you fire, and fire, every 60 seconds, you get ammo. What's not to love about that? You get ammo from it. So that is why this entire thing is so good. Now, I would say that if I was using a different LMG, I would go a little bit more in depth on the coupler talent, but because I'm using the Bullet King and I don't need to look onto reloads, then I would say, yeah, just don't really worry about it. For this, the armor kits, I don't really care as much, but it does repair 100% and gives you a little bit of bonus armor. So if you are using Intimidate with this build instead of the Sacrifice, then I think it's pretty good. Alright, so now for the skills. The skills that I usually run with this are the repair drone, obviously, because as long as you're being repaired, you will not die. And then you also have the pulse. Now, I usually use pulse in the DZ. If you're using PvE, you usually want to run Revive or Hive, because it basically gives you a second chance at doing it, at doing whatever you're doing. And usually, NPCs are not the friendliest, so you want to have a second chance if things, you know, if crap hits the fan. Alright, so that mostly covers everything. Now, this build I use on everything, and trust me, you are going to love it if you use it. You can replace it with whatever you want, it works all the same. This has been C, and I hope you guys have had a wonderful experience watching this video. If you have any ideas on what I could change or what I can modify on this build, feel free to comment. And be sure to like and subscribe if you want more of this content as well. I should be able to do a few more videos before while this quarantine is going on, but other than that, have had fun. Adios, lads, and peace out.